everybody, did you know that May 13th is National Apple Pie Day? Well, the one and only Chef Cleva is bringing you not one but two episodes about apple pie. Although my very first episode of Curious Chef Cleva was about apple pie, I guarantee that episode and these two episodes are definitely different. So without further delay, let's get started. So as I mentioned, my very first episode of Curious Chef Cleva was about apple pie. And I definitely remember mentioning that I do not like making my own pie crust. But I decided to challenge myself this year and make my own pie crust and then also share the process, the ups and downs, and the recipe with you. So get your pen and paper and your photographic memory together because these are the ingredients for your pie crust. The pie crust dough we're using is actually going to be called a pâte sucrée, and the ingredients are as follows. You're going to need 680 grams of all-purpose flour, 225 grams of sugar, 7 grams of baking powder, 6 grams of salt, 225 grams of unsalted butter, and 5 eggs. Now, first what you're going to do is you're going to take all of your dry ingredients, that is your flour, your sugar, your baking powder, and your salt, and you're going to put it in your mixing bowl. You can use your palette attachment for those dry ingredients, a quick little mix. And then what you're going to do is you're going to give it all the butter. Pour all the butter in there and then just allow the mixer to do the work for you. Give the machine a little pulse. And then you're going to turn it on low speed and just let it rock out. Let it do its thing. Don't bother it because what you're trying to look for, the goal is for the dough to look like a wet sand right now. So in the meantime, I'm going to explain what exactly a pâte sucrée even means. So a pâte sucrée in English translates to French sweet tart. And this dough is honestly very versatile because you can use it for cold desserts and you can also use it for warm desserts as well. At this point, as you can see, the dough is starting to give you that nice wet sand look, and this is when we're going to start to incorporate our eggs. You don't want to dump all the eggs in at one time. You really want to mix them in one at a time and allowing each egg to pretty much run through the whole process of mixing. When the dough starts to really stick to itself, you can actually switch to the dough hook, hence the name dough hook. It's going to help bring everything together a bit easier than a paddle attachment. So just scrape down your paddle attachment and just switch to the dough hook and just let it do its thing. Now, the cool thing about this dough is that it's considered a patch dough, which means that you can pretty much piece it together without it creating seams or without it causing any layers when you fold it in on itself. You can literally pick it apart and then put it back together and it'll still work the same way that you want it to work. Alright, so now that our dough is finished, we're going to just bring it more, give it more of a cohesive look, and then we're going to put it in plastic wrap and let it hang out in the fridge, preferably for at least an hour to overnight. You could probably use it right out of the bowl, but personally I just prefer to work with it when it's cold as opposed to working with it when it's room temperature and then having to, deal with that. It's just so much easier to just deal with it and make it more pliable once it's cold. Alright guys, so next up we're going to have to slice and dice our apples and get everything ready for our apple pie filling. So once again, get that photographic memory together and get your pen and paper because we're going over the ingredient list for apple pie filling. For our apple pie filling, you're going to need 6 cups of apples, 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, 2 tablespoons of flour, 3/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. What you're going to do is you're going to dump all of the ingredients into a pot and start moving it around until it gets to this point. You might think the lemon juice is enough liquid, but in actuality, the heat from the pot is going to release natural juices from the apples, and the flour that acts as a thickening agent is going to become a nice thick sauce over time. Let it keep moving until it boils, and then after the boil, it's going to start to get thicker. So now that our pie filling is done and cooled and our pie dough is ready to be moved out, we're going to roll out our slip mat, which is basically I use to roll out cookies, doughs, fondant. I really do love this mat. These rings are a must-have. Honestly, for someone like me who's a horrible eye for scale, they're used for rolling pins to allow you to measure the thickness of whatever you're rolling out. So it helps guide you so that you don't go past the rings. They come in different sizes, different colors to help. Basically, it's just a guide for people who need a little extra oomph when it comes to measuring out how thick you want your items to be that you're rolling out. Now, one interesting thing about the pie filling is the fact that you have to pick the right apple in order to accomplish what kind of taste you're trying to get with your apple pie. So, for example, I learned that there are actually over 7,000 varieties of apples. And that means that you have so many options when it comes to figuring out what kind of apple you want for your apple pie. Because if you want your apple pie to maintain that nice crunchiness even throughout the baking process, you would go for more of a tougher apple. If you wanted to have more of a soft mouthfeel, then you'd probably go for more of a soft, sweet apple. But the fact that there are over 7,000 varieties of apples in the world is absolutely crazy to me, but apparently they're everywhere. You just got to figure out which apple is best for you. So the 10 most popular types of apples are the Red Delicious, which are considered crunchy, mild, and sweet. Gala, which is a sweet and very crisp apple. Golden Delicious, which can fall in the sweet, crisp with a yellowish green skin. Granny Smith, which is more of a crunchy and tart apple. Pink Lady, which is a sweet tart with a little blush pink skin. The Fuji, which is the sweetest and crunchy with the yellow, green skin and red highlights. Then you have your Honey Crisp, which is sweet yet tarty with a long shelf life. And Lady Williams apple with very red, crisp, and have a sharp, tangy flavor. When it comes to rolling out anything, the best method, honestly, is to just roll and turn. So that way, what you're rolling on your slip mat or any sort of surface doesn't stick to the surface. So you're basically just rolling and turning until you get to the desired length and thickness that you are aiming for. We're going to then put our pie dough in our pie dish, and we're going to just shape it to where we need it to be. And this is a perfect example of the fact that the pat secret is a patchy dough, because I'm peeling off the sides, but then I'm still able to roll it out to the proper thickness and then just fill in the gaps of where the pie dough didn't hit the proper parts of the pie dish that we're going to use for baking the apple pie. So at this point, I'm going to do the lattice top for the apple pie. And apparently, Dutch bakers created the apple pie with lattice style crust in the 15th century. Now, even though it's really pretty and decorative, it actually serves a purpose. The lattice top of an apple pie allows excess liquid to boil off during cooking to prevent the pie from becoming too soggy. The openings between the lattice also allow fruit juices in the pie fillings to evaporate during the cooking process, which then furthers the caramelization process we started when the apple pie filling was in the pot. The lattice pastry is also used kind of like a lid because essentially the filling is just in there loosey-goosey. So this allowed the pie to have pretty much an edible lid to secure everything in there from moving around and from flying out from movement or whatever. Plus, all in all, let's be real, it looks very pretty and looks extremely, professional and elegant, especially when you get into the super fancy lattice style coverings on top. Alright, everybody, that is a wrap on the apple pie episode. Please let me know how yours turned out in the comments, and if you like this recipe, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, ring that little bell so that way you are notified when the next episode drops. I'm Chef Cleva, and remember, everyone's a little curious. Bye, guys.